Fine Tailored Suits, a segment featuring riders. Plaza of Honor, superstar, should be Hall of Famer. What do you think Suits is the most appropriate title?
Well, the stories get better as the years go by. So I'll just leave it at that. I was just listening to you guys talk about my two curling teams that are still in the fight, which I love in our bet. Yes. And I was wondering if The Rock knows how to curl.
If he did, he would absolutely package something and sell it for sure.
Well,
Under Armour curling gear brought to you by The Rock.
We saw Ron Burgundy at the Olympic curling trials a couple years ago, so maybe we can see The Rock show up at something.
That would be incredible. Hey, if the two leagues merge and TSN still broadcasts it, anything would absolutely be possible. Sooner joining us is brought to you by Quality Tire, 10 locations across Saskatchewan, qualitytire.ca. Microphone, I'll pass it to you, Glenn. Your thoughts on the CFL and XFL aligning themselves and having discussions about the future. What do you think?
Well, my initial response was, to listen into all of the speculation that went crazy yesterday and try to just sort of find some common sense in it all, really. I think where we are as far as post-pandemic and looking for a return to play in 21, that everything has to be on the table with regards to finding ways to generate revenue in the league. That just, I think any discussion that could increase revenues in the league is one that should be had, and you should look under every stone. But having said that, my first impression was it is very preliminary. I think The Rock, generally speaking, from everything I've read, I've never met the man, but from everything I've read, when I look at his other business ventures, and I've done a lot of reading on some of those other business ventures outside of acting and the wrestling component, he seems like a genuine, respectful human being that does have a history with Canadian Football League. And to have discussions with a guy that is so prominent and dominant in social media, in the world of click headlines and celebrity and all of that, to listen and hear out and talk to The Rock and his group, I think is a good idea. Mm-hmm. Now I have, and I think I speak for a lot of Canadians, I have some lines in the sand when we start to get into the speculation game. I thought yesterday, DT, you did a great job of asking very important and key questions to what could happen, what's possible, what could we lose, why is this going on? Is it a desperation move by the CFL? All of those things, I think is what's happened over the last 24 hours here. And I've tried to keep a level head through it all and say, where's my line in the sand in all of this? I love the discussions. I love the look to increase revenues. The line in the sand is our rules and the history of those rules and Canadian content.
We'll dive into those in 1 second. The commissioner said that we're talking about talking. And when he said that, I didn't buy it. Let's say that, because you put out this announcement, the XFL tweets something, TSN makes a point of tweeting something. You're at that point when he said we're just talking about talking, I felt like, you know what? No, you've clearly been talking for some period of time already. This isn't a first date. Let's say that.
Yeah, no, it's not. They've been talking for a while. There was a coordinated release from owners, board of governors, presidents, team officials, TSN. The Players Association was notified as well in the morning that this press release was going to happen. I think even in your interview, DT, the commissioner talked about his discussions with the Players Association. So, this was obviously a coordinated effort. But again, our league is so unique in our country, and I've watched it through the years, and just I always wonder about that. The same person that criticizes the commissioner for going into sort of a media silence bubble, and he gets criticized for that, and then turn around and now he gets criticized for maybe prematurely making an announcement that's not really an announcement, just that they're talking. So I just don't think you can have it both ways. I think it's okay for the commissioner to go public with this information and say, listen, we're talking to the XFL. We're talking, and it was interesting because he was specifically saying their ownership group. You know, it was a lot of discussions about The Rock and about Danny Garcia and about Jeffrey Pollock. It was the CEO. It was discussions that they're having to grow the game. Now, I'm not naive.
Yeah,
everything's on the table, DT. Yeah, everything's on the table. So let's play the speculation game.
Well, I just like to step through it a little bit and go, what does the CFL need from the XFL? And the commissioner said marketing, and then he eventually said money. In a time where you have not played in more than a year, and the 2021 season is in no way guaranteed to be a full season, you need money. You need money. Okay, and the XFL owners would appear to have money. Is there anything else that comes to you as what the CFL needs from the XFL?
Well, the marketing initiatives, the reach that The Rock has, money is part of it, but we can get to that a little bit later too, because that's another one of sort of a disconnect that I've seen throughout all my years of experience in the Canadian Football League. This disconnect on our league. I've been hearing that our league is dying every single year for 35 straight years.
Yeah.
And we've talked about different franchises. We talked about different, the BC Lions were successful not long ago when the late Bob Ackles was running the show in BC and G. Roy Simon was a star player here. They were putting great crowds in BC Place. Now it hasn't been that over the last little while for a variety of reasons, but it doesn't mean it's dying. It means they need to get new ownership. There's groups there and they move on. I'll even go further than that. Hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure spent on stadiums in our country where the number one tenant is football.
Yep.
Our TV deal, which we've talked about before, is 235 to 240 million over the next 5 years. That's guaranteed revenue to the league. We talk about
if they play, yeah,
if they play. You talk about ratings, and this is where the disconnect is for me, because I understand we need to get more fans in the stands, and we need, like every sport, to lower the fan age, the demographic. That's the goal of every sport, by the way. But our ratings, and this is where the disconnect is, in a league in our country that's dying, our ratings are beating hockey most of the time. Saskatchewan Roughrider games are getting over 1 million viewers just in July on a Friday night or whatever day it is. The Grey Cup still gets 10 million people tuning in at some time or another. That's a third of our country watching the Grey Cup. There's very few programs on conventional television or sports networks that get that kind of number.
But the league, Mitchell Blair, is losing $20 to $30 million, $60 to $80 million this season where they didn't play. So there's obviously something going on.
Right. And Glenn, it brings me to this question. And when this news came out yesterday, and I looked at it like everybody else and went,
yep,
okay, didn't see that coming. I was on record as saying before yesterday, I've said it for the last maybe 6 months to a year, that at the end of the day, the National Football League would come to the CFL's rescue because they realize how important the CFL is to them when it comes to being a developmental league. I'm just wondering if the relationship has soured somewhat between Randy Ambrosie and Roger Goodell, and this has made Randy Ambrosie go to the XFL. Am I way off base on that, Glenn, or not?
I'm not sure. I think there are still many sort of practices that are shared between the NFL and the CFL head offices. I really do. I think they have been in touch on a regular basis when it comes to COVID protocols and things like that. Obviously, in a lot of ways, it's apples and oranges with the NFL because of the money they can spend on it with tracking devices on every player and all of those things. But I think when it comes to officiating, there are still shared practices and discussions on rule changes and replay and how that all will roll out and how it all will evolve between the NFL and the CFL. I think this is sort of this discussion with the XFL. To me, it looks like, again, from the outside looking in, it looks to me like that the lure of The Rock and his social media presence, his celebrity, his marketing acumen, I think has been enticing to Randy Ambrosie. Now, on the other side, and again, this is our country. And I can't remember who said it, but I remember a former commissioner saying that if Canada was voted the number one country in the world, Canadians would ask for a recount.
That's great.
Because because
we have those people over there. I don't know. With the
it's funny.
Strife. Yeah, that's funny.
It's funny, DT, because when you think about when this first hit yesterday, a lot of people in their speculation were saying, well, it's because the CFL is going to die if we don't do something like this. And so we need the XFL, so we have to sell our soul to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would flip it. The XFL, let's play the speculation game.
Oh, Suits. I don't
know. The XFL
going here, because if you're going to say the XFL needs the CFL, I'm going to need to be convinced of that.
Well, the XFL needs to separate itself from all other leagues that weren't called the NFL that have tried in the United States. They have to separate themselves from a perception point of view,
right,
from all other leagues that have tried and failed. So that's one thing where they could do a North American merger or amalgamation in their minds that would make them different, make them a different look, a different, maybe rules that were completely different in a lot of ways. I'm not sure, but they need to separate themselves. They get immediate credibility with the 100-year history of our league. They get immediate credibility from that history that could help them in TV contracts and things like that.
To some extent, how much that plays in America, which has a long football history of its own, I have questions about.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that anyone in the United States is going, oh, the XFL is a better league because they're now engaged with the CFL. But if you're a television network like Fox or NBC or any of them down south,
mm-hmm,
and you're looking at a 16-team league with a complete Canadian division with the chance of maybe going to Europe and Mexico, because that's part of I think the interesting aspect from the XFL's point of view was the international experiment, I guess we could say, from Randy Ambrosie, that he had already opened up those doors.
Yeah.
And they are very interested in an international policy or initiative. So I think you add those things up, and the XFL is looking at this as, hey, this could really benefit us in a lot of different ways. And the CFL, again, we can speculate at both ends of the spectrum,
mm-hmm,
but the CFL looks at it and says the marketing of The Rock, a solid, head office as far as marketing strategy goes, new TV ideas. And I'm going to throw one out that I haven't heard much of over the last 24 hours.
Okay.
Back in the last sort of the beginning of the Vince McMahon approach to the second go at the XFL. So that was back in what, 16 or 17?
The first XFL?
No, not the first XFL. When Vince McMahon started the one that just folded.
So it played in the 2020 season, but it had been in the works for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 or 3 years. So we're saying 17, 18. So when that started, there was discussions on different betting apps and techniques that you could possibly do in this new XFL in stadium and ideas like that. And I wonder if somewhere in the minutia of these discussions that will come up. Does the XFL have patents on different ways to gamble in stadium on football?
Well, and that's where we brought that up yesterday's show, because the story of the Alliance of American Football is the owner, it was in trouble. The owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Condon, came in to buy it. Oh, he's going to save the league. Oh, it got shut down within a very short period of time. And the story that came out of that was they were working on some in-game betting technique that he wanted to get a hold of, and buying the league and folding it was how he got in this betting space. And to me, you'd be like, hey, if you're the CFL, hey, Tom Condon, why don't you bring that to us? There's other ways to go about it than an unproven group like the current owners of the XFL, because Jeffrey Pollack has been an executive with NASCAR, he ran the World Series of Poker. He was an executive with the San Diego Chargers. These folks The Rock has Instagram followers, and The Rock is The Rock. He is the sizzle in this steak, right? Redbird Capital is the steak in this, and that they have zillions of dollars. But I don't see that being the only thing that they're asking for. When the commissioner said marketing, I thought that's nice, but there are people in Canada who can market stuff, and there are celebrities in Canada who can market stuff, and you could contract The Rock to do stuff on his own. This has to be the CFL is in my mind, this is again speculation. The CFL is in a bad spot with money to make this announcement is the way my brain starts to go.
So then you get into you're right. And you get into the speculation game a little bit here, because that's where you start to ask the questions like, will 4-down American rule football be what can lead to financial prosperity in our country? Well,
what do you have to give up as a Canadian football league in order to get the money that is on offer from Redbird Capital, right? And that becomes a thing that your concerns then come in of, am I willing to give these up to get this? Is this the pro quo for the quid?
Are we willing to publicly, the publicly owned teams, are we willing to give up that control to essentially run business? When you talk to the Players Association and the players, are you okay with a centrally run business and no union? I mean, like you're talking about when we talk about the extreme in the speculation department, you're talking about a merger. And when you're talking about a merger of both leagues, there are 100 logistic issues. There are many sort of just philosophical issues. And it goes back down to, do you think if there were two options here for the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, one being to go with the two leagues sharing practices, maybe even an all-star event of some kind, we can get into the champions playing each other. I got another opinion on that.
Yeah, but
there could be a working relationship, but not a merger. And that the marketing and the save the CFL financial situation comes from a different place. And I can give you my suggestions on that, but that comes from a different place. Or are you willing to roll the dice that 4-down American rule football with much lesser Canadian content is going to be the answer to financial prosperity with pro football in our country?
Well, it doesn't. We got to go to break, and it doesn't have to be the road to financial prosperity. It might be the road away from total financial ruin, right? When we talk about, I want to pick your brain on the things that are kind of no-fly zones for you. What would you give up for what's on offer? But what if you are almost homeless? What would you do if it's fold the league or give away this? What are you willing to give away, right, in order to save itself? Comes into the picture in the very worst case scenario. 5:51, we got to give away a Glenn Suter jersey. This is the premium stuff. Glenn, you have verified these autographs are legit?
100%. I did them here in the bunker.
His classic number, that's awesome. His classic number 27, Zinger's murderous trivia. Zinger, go.
All right, today's murderous trivia. First of all, the number to call, 306-936-6262, toll free 1-866-767-0620. The question today is, how many pick sixes did Glenn Suter have in his career?
Oh, Glenn, can you flash us the answer on Zoom, but not say it out loud? For folks who are watching on YouTube. All right. Okay. All right. Very good. 306-936-6262. You can win a Glenn Suter jersey if you tell us how many pick sixes he had in his career. As we continue with the CFL and XFL alignment, talking about stuff. Glenn, you are by far one of the strongest proponents of the Canadian game and Canadian talent and the Canadian history of the Canadian Football League. For you, give me whatever no-fly zones, whatever this turns out to be between the XFL and the CFL. Give me for you the things that you will not give up lest they pry them out of your cold dead hand.
Well, the rules for one.
Okay.
Yep. The wide field, the 12 players, and unlimited motion, 3 downs, and I think that's always separated us. It's always made us unique. It's one of the great selling points. I mean, I've always said you can love both leagues. You don't have to choose one or the other.
No.
But if I was going to do that and compare the two, I think the NFL, one of the coolest things about the NFL is the tight end. I think that athlete that we don't really see in our game in the CFL, that athlete is unique to anything in sports. And I love the tight end in the National Football League. But here's one that I don't like about the NFL. When you go to watch NFL live, it puts you to sleep half the time.
Oh,
it's hard to watch live. It's there's a lot of space and a lot of dead air and a lot of downtime in an NFL game live. Now Seattle fans will say when they get crazy in their home stadium, it's different. And I know you have your nights,
but Blair.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are those moments, but I used to go to many Tennessee games when my son was down in Nashville, and the tailgating was fun. I love the game because I'm watching a lot of different aspects of it, but it's a little boring to watch. Now, I never compare them because I don't think you should. I think you can love both and for different reasons, but I wouldn't give up our rules. And, I have a different perspective on the next one, DT, which is Canadians and Canadian opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective comes not only from obviously being honored to be able to represent the province of Saskatchewan as a Saskatchewan Rough Rider. And throughout my whole childhood, I was one of those kids at 6, 7, 8 years old that had the dream, that wanted to play professional football anywhere in North America, but wanted to play professional football. And to get a chance to do it in Saskatchewan for all those years with Rider Nation was just, a dream come true for a kid. So, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about Canadian opportunities here. The other side of the perspective for me is both my kids went to school in the United States and both were in the arts. So my daughter, and I've told you this before, but she was in New York City at AMDA, the American Music and Dramatic Academy. My son was at Belmont University in Nashville on a music scholarship. And I know what it's like as a Canadian to try to work in the United States. They protect their own.
Yeah.
And you go for an O1 visa, which is a visa of extraordinary talent. And you can get them, and both my kids did, but it's very, very difficult. They protect their own. And I will not apologize for protecting Canadian jobs. And I'm not just talking about players. I'm talking about coaches. I'm talking about staff. I'm talking about all of it. So when you ask me, how far would you go? I don't believe that playing 4-down football is the answer to prosperity financially for our country in pro football. I just don't believe that. And secondly, I think what makes our game so great and unique are those rules and that Canadian talent. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I refuse to.
Mitchell, we got about 90 seconds.
Yeah, I know we're running short of time here. Would you go with 3-down football on an NFL-sized field?
I've been saying that about amateur football in our country, that it's so hard logistically to change field sizes for a lot of these fields. But for instance, in BC, they still play American rules. I never played a down of Canadian rules until I got to Saskatchewan through Simon Fraser University and playing high school ball in North Vancouver. So I think there could be a hybrid like that for sure. I mean, hey, if the XFL wants to change to our rules, let's keep talking.
it just I can't believe that would sell in America, right?
Well, they can't do it anyway, DT. They can't because their stadiums won't allow it, and
that's the biggest part. Yeah.
And let me ask you this: Did U.S. expansion work?
Well, U.S. expansion with multiple owners with different goals did. This is one group that owns 9 teams at the moment, and that's how MLS got started into this. It's the 18th best soccer league in the world, but it's a going North American soccer league. So it absolutely did not work in 95, 96, whatever the dates of it were. But The Rock wasn't The Rock then. $4 billion in a single entity ownership group wasn't then. And yeah, there's so many, man. There are just, you and I could talk about this for 7.5 hours. Like we could just keep going with all the play it to its end, then come back to the beginning and play it to its end and come back to the beginning. Because it's because the league is so important to us. Final word to you, Glenn. We got about 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, remember this, that the first go at the XFL was led by Vince McMahon, who is the king of marketing. And it was also, the partner was Dick Ebersol, who was at the time major player at NBC. So they had their built-in television contract, and they had Vince McMahon in his prime of marketing expertise, and it didn't work. It didn't work the second time. The USFL hasn't worked. The UFL hasn't worked. All of these other leagues, not called the NFL, haven't worked. I mean, we can learn from history, or we can project future based on our own bias and our own opinions. I think we learn from history and move together, trying to find common ground that can help both of our leagues grow the game. And if that's what this is about, I'm all for it.
Glenn Suter joins us every Monday and Thursday here on the Sports Cage. It's a segment brought to you by Quality Tire. 10 locations across Saskatchewan. QualityTire.ca.
Stop it.
Can your son do that, Glenn? I don't think so.
Stop it.
I don't think so. Thanks, Suits. It's great to talk to you. We'll see you on Monday.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.